Bowman, you are aware that that riot that you were operating, it hit Officer Winston Thomas on August 30th, 2012, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You are aware that Officer Thomas, he was injured by this riot?
Yes, ma'am.
You are aware that Officer Thomas, he died because of his injuries on that riot?
Objection, lack of personal knowledge.
Overruled.
Yes, ma'am. Officer Thomas died.
Now, on August 30th, 2012, you were operating a riot named the Tunnel of Terror,
Yes, ma'am, I was.
and you will recognize that control panel here in court today.
Yes, ma'am, I would.
This is the control panel for the Tunnel of Terror.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Now, Ms. Bowman, to start the riot, you press this green button, isn't that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And to stop it, you will press the red stop button.
Yes, ma'am.
And those were the only two functions that you were ever supposed to press at any time, isn't that right?
That's right.
But on August 30th, 2012, you pulled this blue lever, isn't that right?
Yes, ma'am, but it was an accident. You gotta understand. I didn't know what was going on.
Ms. Bowman, yes or no, on August 30th, 2012, you pulled this blue lever.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, over the summer of 2012, you were working at Rock to Roll as a ride operator, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Cameron Poole, he worked in the ticket booth.
Yes, ma'am.
And at first, you thought it was odd that Cameron Poole was working in the ticket booth, isn't that right?
Yeah, I thought it was kind of strange.
In fact, you actually started to talk to him about the park's operations over that summer.
Yeah, I didn't know why, but he kept on just asking me about the park and how it worked.
Right, and you told him how the ticketing booth operated, isn't that right?
Yeah, he kept asking about it, so I told him.
In fact, that was when Cameron Poole, he told you about his wristband scheme.
Yes, ma'am, he did tell me.
He told you that he was pocketing $15 on cash purchases of the World Tour passes.
Yes, ma'am.
And he also told you that he would hand out the fake wristbands to customers, isn't that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, you didn't tell anybody after you heard that Cameron Poole was stealing from the park, did you?
No, ma'am, I did.
In fact, Miss Bowman, you actually saw these wristbands, didn't you?
Yes, ma'am. Everyone in the park was using them like they were normal wristbands.
Miss Bowman, you wouldn't even say that these wristbands were Cameron Poole's. You would say that these wristbands were yours and Cameron Poole's wristbands, isn't that right?
They weren't the ones that that Mr. Longstreet bought. Yeah, they were ours, the ones that Cameron bought.
Yes. You actually saw these wristbands?
Yes, ma'am.
You touched these wristbands?
Yeah, I think Cameron showed them to me once.
Now, on August 30th, 2012, you and Cameron, you both showed up to the park together, isn't that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And then you saw Longstreet in the ticket booth, and you got worried, because you knew Cameron Poole was supposed to be working there.
Yeah, I thought it was real strange that Longstreet would leave his office to be in the ticket booth. It seemed like there was trouble or something.
So you went back to your ride, the mind eraser, to work, isn't that right?
Yes, ma'am.
And later on that day, you received a text message, like you said on direct, to let Cameron Poole into the park.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, you went to the back door of the Tunnel of Terror, and you let Cameron Poole in the park.
Yes, ma'am.
And it was at that time that Cameron Poole let you know that J.C. Longstreet was on to your guys' plan. Isn't that right?
Yes, ma'am. He said that Longstreet seemed suspicious of his skin and scheme.
And Ms. Bowman, that's when you asked Cameron Poole, what are we going to do? Isn't that right?
Yeah, I asked him what was going on, what were we going to do?
You asked, what are we going to do? And then later on that night, the park was robbed. Isn't that right?
Objection, complex question.
Your Honor, I can break that up if you like. You asked, what are we going to do? Yes or no?
Yes.
And then the park was robbed. Isn't that right?
The park was robbed, but I didn't want to rob it. That wasn't what I was trying to
Ms.
do.
Bowman, yes or no? The park was robbed after you asked, what are we going to do?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, later on that night after the park was robbed, you saw Cameron Poole being chased by Officer Winnie Thomas, isn't that right?
Yes, ma'am.
They approached your ride,
Yes, ma'am.
the ride that you're only supposed to push start and stop, isn't that right?
Yes, ma'am.
When they approached your ride, instead of pressing the stop button, you pulled down on this blue lever, isn't that right?
Yes, ma'am, but like I said, it was an accident. There was a man with a gun, and it was just real scary. I didn't know what was going on.
Miss Bowman, yes or no? You pulled down on this blue lever.
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And that's when all the lights went out in the ride,
Yes, ma'am.
but the cars, they kept moving.
Yes, ma'am.
And when you put this ride into blackout mode, Cameron Poole, he escaped.
Yes, ma'am, he did.
And Officer Winnie Thomas, he was hit by that ride.
Yes, ma'am, he was.
Now, Miss Bowman, you keep saying that there was a gun and that you were panicked. But on August 30th, 2012, you were interviewed by Detective Kimball, isn't that right?
Yeah, like right after this all happened, yeah.
Exactly. And you actually lied to the police, didn't you?
Let's see. Honestly, it was all real scary. Yeah, I think I probably like messed some stuff up, but like I said, Officer Thomas had just gotten hit by the car.
Miss Bowman, you lied to the police, yes or no?
Yes, ma'am, I did.
And you told the police that you never even knew Cameron Poole before he started working at Rockter Road, isn't that right?
Yes, ma'am, that's what I told Officer Kimball, but you gotta see, Cameron had just done something crazy. He had just robbed the park. I didn't want someone to get the wrong idea about me.
Miss Bowman, you lied to the police about knowing Cameron Poole, yes or no?
Objection asked and answered. Overruled.
And that wasn't the only lie you told. You told Officer Kimball and you didn't hear a gunshot, isn't that right?
Yeah, like I said, I was real flustered.
Now, you were in trial and you heard J.C. Longstreet come up and testify to that, didn't you?
Yes, ma'am.
And you heard him say that you were never to work this ride, the Tunnel of Terror, ever again, isn't that right?
I mean, that's what Mr. Longstreet said, but honestly, he never told me that. I mean, I cover for Billy all the time. I don't know why he would say that.
You were also in court when Rory Shelton, he told us that you gave Cameron Poole a knife on August 30th, 2012.
I think, yeah, that's what Shelton said. But like I said, I didn't give Cameron a knife. Where would I get one?
And you were actually in court when you heard Tyler Hartman say that you never stopped the ride until Officer Thomas was hit. Isn't that right?
Yeah, that's what Miss Hartman said.
And Ms. Bowman, you want us to believe your testimony over J.C. Longstreet, Tyler Hartman, and Rory Shelton.
Objection,
That's what you're telling us today? Ms. Bowman, you lied to the police, but yet you want us to believe your testimony. Is that right?
Ma'am, when I talked to Officer Kimball, I was scared. Cameron had just done something that I had no idea he was gonna do. And Mr. Winnie Thomas had just gotten hit. But I've had a good long time to think about everything and a good long time to remember everything. So I'm just telling you what I know and what I know happened, because I know if I tell the truth, you'll believe me.
No, I want to talk about that. If you tell the truth, we will believe you. But you just said that you lied to the police, but yet you want us to believe what you're saying here.
Objection argumentative and asked and answered. Overruled.
Yes, ma'am. I know that if I tell the truth, you'll know that this was all a big accident. So that's why I'm telling the truth.
Now, you keep saying that this was an accident. It was never supposed to happen. Ms. Bowman, as a ride operator, you're trained on every single ride, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And on every single ride, your instructions were to start and stop the ride, and that only.
Yes, ma'am.
To never put it in maintenance mode, isn't that right?
That's right.
But you chose to put it in maintenance mode on August 30th. Yes or no?
No, I didn't choose it. It was
You
an
put it in
accident.
maintenance mode on August 30th, 2012. Yes or no?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Any
demonstrative